In Salem, we would have been considered a witch from all the foul language we use in this episode of Bewitched Banter. You have been warned. Content is not suitable for all listeners. Welcome! You're listening to Bewitched Banter.
I'm Krista, and I believe that people are inherently shitty.
And I'm Amy, and I tend to believe that people are naturally good.
But ironically, I'm a super believer in the supernatural and all things spiritual.
And I'm a total skeptic.
We're best friends, and in this podcast, we're seeking to explore and understand each other's perspectives with deep dives into the spooky, spiritual, the magical, and the mystical.
And some straight up spoofs.
Today, we'll be covering Salem Witches for part 2 of our Halloween special. And I am so excited. Let's get spiritual.
Fuck that. Let's get cynical.
Cheers. So I mentioned that I am so excited to be covering Salem Witch Trials because as I mentioned in the first episode, I am from Connecticut, New England, and Amy is from England. And so I really wanted to, I actually basically begged Amy to let me take the Salem Witch Trials for our week 2 part of our 3-part Halloween special on witches in general. So it's a little bit of a different format this week because Salem Witch Trials are not only the history, but the entire story itself. So I couldn't just pick one woman or one man that was accused. So I'm going to cover one whole segment in one lump sum that is the horrible, horrific history of the Salem Witch Trials. So thank you for letting me take it.
No, I'm excited. I gave it away pretty easily.
You kind of did, but that's okay. I forgive you. So since I grew up so close to Massachusetts, I have been to Salem, actually, on several school field trips over the years.
I'm so jealous. I want to go so bad. I think I got on like Salem TikTok, so it kept popping up.
Cool.
Yeah, and
you have to send me some shit.
Yeah, and it kept showing like all the different tours you can do, like the different destinations, and I was like, I have to go in the fall. But I'm assuming
Definitely.
like around Halloween, everything would probably be really overpriced, right?
Well, it's funny you say that because my next sentence is like literally all those school field trips always coincided with the spooky season and the time of year. And I think it was just so happened to tie into the time of the curriculum as well. So it always also coincided with the time when we were reading and then writing book reports on Arthur Miller's 1953 play, The Crucible. And for those of you who don't know, who don't like theater, Miller is a renowned playwright with 2 New York Drama Critics Circle Awards, 2 Emmys, 3 Tonys, and a Tony Award for Lifetime Achievement. So this mofo is
kind of a big deal.
A BFD, yes.
Must be
big fucking giant.
Deal. Yeah.
No, the big fucking deal. So again, those of you who did not grow up in New England, you were therefore probably not mandated to read Miller's The Crucible. Here's a really quick snapshot from Wikipedia of what The Crucible is. It's a dramatized and partially fictionalized story of the Salem Witch Trials that took place in Massachusetts Bay Colony during 1692 to 93.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
How is it? Like reading it?
Oh, my next sentence again, Spark Notes, baby. Remember Spark
Is it
Notes?
one of those things like they use Old English?
No, it's not like Shakespearean at all.
Okay.
But I definitely didn't read the full thing, totally telling on myself right now. And so when I was Googling, the Spark Notes came up for it. And I totally remember Spark Notes in like middle school.
No, I remember Spark Notes and Cliff Notes. I think Cliff Notes saved my life when we had to read Shakespeare in high school.
Oh, yeah, same.
Because I could not stand it. And then I remember I had to write a paper. And I was like, this is really hard to write a paper off of Cliff Notes. And then actually what happened...
we all did it, though.
What actually happened, though, I was struggling so much, I kept asking my mom to help me, and then she didn't realize she kind of took it over and wrote the whole paper.
Hell yeah. You got it gig there.
No, but she never did. She only did it once, but then I almost called him a professor. My high school teacher, after class one day...
He called you out?
No, he asked me to stay after class. He was like, hey, can you talk to me? And he was like... did you write this paper? Because it's probably like, you know what I mean? Like a high school student did not write this. And I was like, yeah, I did, but my mom helped proofread it. And I think he couldn't really prove it. So he was like, okay. But I think he knew, like, there's no way Amy wrote this.
Lucky you got off clean on that one. So I'm going to get into some of the real life women who were portrayed in Miller's play, The Crucible, shortly. But before I do, another thing I came across while researching Salem was that the play is now a quote unquote banned book in some school districts.
Really?
Yeah. And it's such, I don't even get me started on banned books. It's such an atrocity and an assault on free speech, free thinking and learning. And that's another story for another time because it really boils my blood. So it's a banned book in real life because in real life, Miller was investigated and pointed to as being a communist in the midst of the Cold War.
The writer, right?
Yep, exactly. So from Amazon Books, synopsis, based on the historical people and real events, Arthur Miller's play uses destructive power of socially sanctioned violence unleashed by rumors of witchcraft as a powerful parable to McCarthyism. So again, book was banned because he was, quote unquote, bad and an outcast. Very similar.
But I don't understand it. I understand, like, you want to, like, support good people, but why does it really matter? Why would that, like, cause them to ban it today? Is it banned today?
Yeah, I'll get into that. Listen to this. So one final thing while I was Googling was the question in the search page. Why is The Crucible a banned book? As I said, The Crucible was often banned in the 50s because of the play is an allegorical criticism of the U.S. government's actions. Today, The Crucible is still banned in some school districts for its association, not just with communism, and its controversial subject matter, including, this is why today, to answer your question, including adultery, violence, and, God forbid, the supernatural. And that was written on August 28th, 2020, of why The Crucible is still banned in some districts. So essentially they're afraid. I'm going to assume Southern communities, which may be a massive assumption, that are very like religious or maybe Baptist or like super New Age Christian, see it as too supernatural, which is such bullshit.
But do you think they're just trying to cover up like the history of what happened?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And they don't want people to be free thinking. God forbid they started researching Wicca or witches, and then they started to become interested.
Yeah, I remember people in my hometown actually were protesting Harry Potter at like at the local library because
they just mad because they're not making bank like J.K. Rowling. Get out of here.
I thought it was ridiculous though because it had magic, and I was like, have you read this book? It's like the most harmless book you could possibly read.
And didn't you say last week that magic was in the Bible?
Yeah.
Oh my God. If they're so Christian, know your history then. Like, no, do you know what I mean? Like, know your
I know, but a lot of their arguments, I have to say, are so flawed.
Of course they are.
Just in general.
The whole premise is flawed.
Yeah.
Fuck. Anyway, here I go again. Let me go back into the Salem Witch Trials. There will be anger from me coming, as usual, so stay with me, y'all. The Salem Witch Trials lasted just 1 year, which I didn't realize. I thought all these years of studying it and going there that it was like over a 10-year period.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research for my story, and I noticed it was a lot shorter because I thought it was like over a decade too.
I mean, that's just because so much horrific shit happened in such a small period of time. I think my brain just couldn't accept that. I don't know. And then I just morphed it into, this was over a decade. No, 1 year. So in 1 year, the witch trials led to at least 200 accusations of witchery and 19 barbaric executions by hanging of mostly innocent women.
So another war on women again. That's pretty much like the whole theme. Yeah.
I will be covering the entire history and story of Salem from which the Crucible draws its narrative. Again, I'll be doing all this in one segment today, as Salem's history and the story that gave way to its infamous lore are really so interwoven that we cannot take one good witch or quote-unquote bad witch from this story to tell its own separate story. They're all so intricately connected. Much of what I will cover today comes from the incredible Smithsonian Magazine article by Jess Bloomberg called A Brief History of the Salem Witch Trials, One Town's Strange Journey from Paranoia to Pardon, written October 23rd, 2007. And here's a quote from that article. Quote, several centuries ago, many practicing Christians and those of other religions had a strong belief that the devil, as you covered last week, could give a certain people, known as witches, the power to harm others in return for their loyalty. A, quote, witchcraft craze rippled through Europe from the 1300s to the end of the 1600s. Tens of thousands of supposed witches, mostly women, were accused. Though the Salem trials came on just as the European craze was winding down, local circumstances explain their onset. End quote. During the 1680s, economic hardships and political views wreaked havoc, all thanks to a war, thank you English once again, that the English started.
I told you last week they're guilty of a lot of things.
A lot of bad things.
Yes.
The Spaniards were no better, but the English somehow won, and here we are in America. Anyway, okay, so the English started a war with the French on the land of American colonies. So it was on our soil here. The colonists dubbed this as King William's War. And like all wars do, the consequences were not just human life, but the displacement of hundreds of settlers who fled upstate New York, Nova Scotia, Quebec, to safety in Essex County, modern-day Salem, Massachusetts.
So I'm assuming they were fighting over territory, right?
That and agriculture. So I'll get into that just a little bit.
Okay.
So already tightly wound puritanical people, right? I mean, imagine being stressed from not releasing Jesus. These people.
On a different level.
The new arrivals or the refugees put even more stress on the local agriculture. So great question, which is where the whole other rivalry then brewed locally among which families like fighting over which families could obtain or should obtain the rights and wealth from the port of Salem. So you have this influx of people fleeing the war in upstate New York and parts of Canada, coming down to Salem for refuge. But then you have this booming population of like a janky ass colony that does not necessarily have the infrastructure, economic structure, or the agriculture to support that population boom.
Okay, so the war led people to flee to Salem.
Yep.
Okay, I thought they were fleeing out of Salem.
No, sorry, they're fleeing to Salem.
Okay, now I'm following.
From Canada and upstate New York.
And then they come and fight about agriculture in Salem?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm following now.
Because it put so much stress on the economics and the resources, really.
Because there's like a flood of people.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm following now.
Mm-hmm. So enter Reverend Samuel Parris, who becomes the town's first ordained minister in 1689. And that's, by the way, after the witch trials, but we'll get to that. He was not liked, not one bit, because of his perceived rigidity and greed. The Puritan settlers, feeling, again, the economic and agricultural strife in Essex County, which is where Salem is located, blamed all of the fighting over the ports, commerce, as well as the agricultural shortages as the work of the devil. So already they didn't like this man, and then they're still fighting, and they're blaming him, and they're blaming witchcraft.
And that's just like society.
Exactly.
Okay, they're trying to find someone to blame.
Yeah, exactly. So on top of the community already being such, again, strict religious views, or of such religious views, the rough economic circumstances led to members starting to turn against each other. And specifically Reverend Samuel Parris. He's a key figure in this entire story. It all began in January 1692. Excuse me, did I say 1962 earlier?
I kept jumbling the numbers earlier doing the same thing.
1600s, not the 1900s. 1692, when Reverend Parris's daughter, Elizabeth Parris, aged 9 at the time, and her cousin Abigail Williams, aged 11 at the time, began to act out or become quote-unquote hysteric. A man's word for a woman, God forbid, having fucking feelings.
That is, though.
And
like, when you're emotional, you're crazy.
Yep. God forbid. Or we speak out against ourselves. We're a bitch. We're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The Smithsonian Magazine piece, I'm dismayed if you can't tell. The Smithsonian Magazine piece says about the girls, quote, they screamed, they threw things, uttered peculiar sounds, and contorted themselves into strange positions. And a local doctor blamed the supernatural, end quote.
So they're trying to blame the fact that these girls were having a tantrum on the supernatural.
Yep.
I feel like kids at that age, that's normal.
My take, even as a spiritualist talking here, the girls were young teens in the middle of nowhere, i.e. the woods where I also grew up, repressed as fuck, bored as fuck, with raging hormones. Okay?
Yeah,
Number one.
I feel like teenagers act out. That's just normal.
Exactly. Number two, not only were they going through these hormonal changes that cause many of us young teen girls to act out, the immense stress they probably felt from their father or uncle, Sam Parris, right? He was probably fucking panicking about his wealth and social status. So they probably felt his own stress too, on top of being hormonal girls.
So I would say that also the girls might have been reacting to the fact that it's their father, right? Was so
one's the dad, and then Abigail's the daughter, I believe,
and the cousin, right?
Yeah, the cousin.
But they probably were reacting to the fact that they knew their family member was so well known in the community, and people the whole community didn't like them. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming they probably got backlash from other people in the community because they're related.
Yep, exactly.
And I bet that was part of their tantrum.
Totally. And so like bullying probably back in the day, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like bullied that their uncle's causing this quote unquote agricultural strife because the other kids' parents told them so, you know, that kind of shit. But either way, they were young teens. I mean, I'll be honest. Sorry, Mom. I was a fucking terror too. I really was when I was their age. So I'm sorry, Mom. I had to shout you out there. But
I mean, I was too. I think any parent at that age is like, wow, I don't know. How do you get through that?
I can see you being a terror. I was a nightmare. Like, my family was scared of me. Every morning before.
You know what? I'm not surprised. Are they still scared of you?
Not that I've heard in a long time, but they could be hiding that from me.
They just got trained at an early age not to scare you. Don't do anything to upset you.
Me off. No, what happened was in the mornings, just grunt and groan, and I'd be like, no one fucking talk to me, and they didn't because I was a terror.
I always felt like half my childhood being grounded from the mornings not getting up.
Oh yeah, my dad would turn on the fucking lights, take off my blankets, turn off the heat because we each had our own electric heater. And it's a fucking sauna in here.
No, what my dad would do is like rip the bed covers off and be like, it's time to greet the day, and like rip the blinds open.
Hell no.
I hated it. And then he always would say something about when he was growing up, his parents would throw a wet flannel, which is like a dish rag in England.
Oh, ew.
A wet flannel.
So it probably
on him.
Smelled like shit.
I don't know, but he always said, I'm going to throw a wet flannel on you. And that was the thing.
Thanks, dads. Whatever. I guess we're grateful.
And I would take such long showers, like, because I would just get in the shower and pretty much lay back down. And my parents would turn off the water on me because they would get so angry.
Wait, okay, so you turned on the shower and then you went to bed?
No, I would get in the shower and lay down and be like I gotta get ready. Yeah.
Wow.
And I would be in there forever. So
that's commitment.
Yeah. And there was multiple times I got out of the shower and then went back to bed and fell asleep. And then
I've done that.
They were screaming my name. They're like, and I was like, shit, I'm in my towel, putting my clothes on, and like having sopping wet hair.
Yeah, in the middle of winter for both of us. You Midwest, me, New England, as I said. Oh my God, geez. Good times. Okay, back to these other girls. Teen nightmares. Since Elizabeth Parris and Abigail Williams were the daughter and niece of the town's reverend, as you said, the people of Salem demanded answers as to why these girls were having such hallucinations, wild outbursts. The people very quickly pointed towards witchcraft at the cause, and the girls cracked under intense scrutiny. Quote from the Smithsonian Magazine. On February 29th, under pressure from magistrates, and magistrates I had to look up, by the way, is a civil officer or lay judge who administers the law. The magistrates, quote continued, Jonathan Corwin and John Hawthorne pressured the girls. The girls then blamed 3 women for afflicting them, Tituba, And this is again a quote: "The Parris's Caribbean slave or enslaved woman," I will re-edit that, "in the Parris home, Sarah Good, a homeless beggar, and Sarah Osborne, an elderly impoverished woman," end quote.
I'm already seeing that they picked all the social outcasts of society.
You took my words once again. Are we seeing a pattern here from last week?
Yes, definitely.
Women of color and those of poor socioeconomic standings became among the first victims of the Salem Witch Trials, all thanks to what may very have well been the very first Karens on record in colonial New England. Me editorializing, but why not?
No, there are definitely some Karens.
Right?
Probably like the whole community.
Oh, they were totally, not only Karens, but like Mean Girl. So like Regina George's. Bitches. All right. So legit, these people wasted absolutely no time after fingers were pointed by the girls to these quote unquote lower class women. On February 29th, which is when the girls pointed their fingers, literally one day later, on March 1st, 1692, Tituba, Good, and Osborne were interrogated for several days by the local magistrates. Osborne and Good claimed innocence, but Tituba confessed and is reported to have proclaimed on trial, "The devil came to me and bid me serve him," end quote.
I wonder what they did differently to her, or maybe she just cracked. Like, why she's the only one who confessed.
I think she probably was like, "I'm a black woman. I'm fucked. They're going to kill me anyway."
I'm assuming that, but also, I just wonder, God knows what they did to her.
I'm an enslaved woman. I'm not going to be, they're not going to give me any mercy. So might as well say, fuck you all. I believe in the devil and I did it. Mm-hmm. Like a big fuck you back. So Tituba also claimed to have seen wild animals of bright colors and said...
Unicorns?
No, like cats and dogs that were red and yellow and kind of wild colored animals. Mm-hmm. And said that a, quote, black man made her sign his book, which she considered the devil, and she also admitted to signing his book while she was on the stand. Despite Good and Osborne's claim... Isn't that a local law firm, by the way? Isn't Good and Osborne like a local law firm in Phoenix?
It might be.
I swear I'm hearing the jingle in my head, but I swear. Oh, no, it's Osborne and Osborne, I think.
Yeah, it's Osborne and Osborne.
Okay, my bad. All right. Despite Good and Osborne's claims of innocence, all three women were sent to jail and hanged.
Wow. I mean, I'm not surprised, unfortunately.
Same, sadly. I mean, it just... They had no chance of being, like you said, outcasted women in society. No chance.
Well, it seems like to me the whole witch hunt and the Salem Witch Trials is all about picking on people who wouldn't have much of a defense to begin with.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Like you said, they never stood a chance.
No. So the girls' hysteria quickly transformed, or really migrated, into mass paranoia of the Salem's town people. Accusations of Salem women and some men skyrocketed over the next few months. And remember, the trials were in March, the very first ones. And it's important for timeline here.
So wait, when did this start?
February 29th was when the girls pointed their fingers. March 1st, the trials of Tituba, Osborne, and Good were had.
Okay.
And I don't know how long they sat in jail, but I think they did for quite a bit.
Okay.
Because they weren't necessarily the first to be hanged.
Okay.
There's another gal I'll cover shortly who it was the first to be hanged. So, again, trials were started in March 1692. One of the many persons also looked at when the hysteria broke out was Martha Corey. She was a church lady. I'm calling her a church lady of Salem Village. And if she could be a witch, then anyone could be a witch, because she was a God-fearing church lady. Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh shit, if she's accused, oh man.
Well, that probably just made everyone in the community very nervous. Like, oh, they're looking at her and like she's like a
supposed
should be the example for the community, attending church every week. She's a godly woman.
Godly woman. Are we godly women? No, anyway, so yes, fucking pandemonium just broke out, and dozens of people were tried and accused of witchcraft after the first three women were. By late May in 1692, Governor William Phips basically ordered a, quote, legal witch hunt or special court of oír in Spanish, but so that means a special court to hear, and terminer, to decide. Essentially, he held, again, a legal witch hunt to basically indict any locals with witch charges within Suffolk County, Essex, and Middlesex counties. So low-key inquisition here happening in Salem for anyone accused or pointed to as being a witch. Bridget Bishop was the first to be heard by this new special court that Governor Phipps just created. She was ousted, first because she was older, and second because she had a rap for gossipy habits and promiscuity.
Was she having sex with the devil? Like the last episode?
I mean, I bet they think she was. And you know what? I'd be named a witch 100% for my foul language. Like, immediately. Mm-hmm. And my colorful clothing choices and not wearing black and white or brown and like boring shit that they were all force-fed and forced to do. Anyway, in defense of Bridget Bishop, she said, in defense of herself, "I am as innocent as a child unborn." End quotes. Unfortunately, though, Bishop's pleas went ignored, and she was the first woman in person to be hanged on what was later called Gallows Hill, now on June 10th. So, started in March, now we're in June.
Okay.
Mid-June. As I mentioned at the top, 19 victims were hanged on Gallows Hill. Several people died in jail, and even a 71-year-old man was pressed to death with heavy stones.
Damn.
In public.
So have you been to Gallows Hills? Is that like a tourist destination?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's still there. I don't remember like being on a hill per se, but I've certainly been into the places I'll mention.
Is it a structure or what is it?
No, it's just like, I believe a hill, and I don't think they hung them from trees. I think they had actual like shackles and the things you mentioned last week.
The stocks.
Stocks, yeah. And then they must have had some type of execution tool for hanging, so it might have been a tree, actually.
So it's just land. It's not like any monument or anything there.
No, just land.
Okay.
And the buildings I did go into were, like, definitely creepy. There's a vibe, for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm sure the whole town has a vibe.
Total spooky.
But I don't know if that's just, like, you go in thinking about all the things that have happened there, and it kind of makes you think those things are creepy.
Like the lore behind it, and it's like, oh my God, I'm on this ground that such horrific things happen, and the soil absolutely absorbed that energy and the atmosphere. And even my sister, I was telling her, I was covering this, and I was like, remember when we used to go? And she's like, how the fuck did they let us go as kids to that place? I'm like, girl, I don't know, but I loved it. The little witch in me was like, yes, this was fucking cool.
No, I always was really fascinated by Salem Witch Trials. I think I loved it as a kid, going on a field trip.
Yeah, I was really lucky growing up. We went there, and as you know, Broadway, and like, yeah, I was a privileged little bee. I'm not gonna lie. I'm very fortunate in this life. Okay, so this old man was even pressed with heavy stones, and although others died or were accused, all in the name of practicing the, quote, devil's magic. So by the end of 1962, the hysteria reached such a peak that a homie named Cotton Mather, he's a homie because he's actually calling on the court to stop this nonsense. Cotton Mather, his name's Cotton, and his son's name is even weirder, which I'll get to shortly. Cotton Mather wrote a letter to the court begging to deny the use or introduction of any speculative evidence at any trial. Because, hello, what the fuck? Like, Anyway, I couldn't tell if he was so impassioned by this because it was his wife that was being accused for having dreams and visions, or if his son's wife was at the time being accused. So anyway, Cotton Mather, the father's request was denied. So from when he wrote this letter at the end of 1962, they were still accusing people with zero evidence-based facts on these witch trials. Hangings continued through the summer, culminating with 8 more, even more in each month, but the final 8 in September.
I'm assuming the hangings were like public affairs, right? Like everyone's invited to come watch it.
Yeah, again, as a cautionary tale.
Yeah, I can see
and
that.
A fear. So Cotton Mather's son, weird name, again, Increase, like to increase.
Oh, his name's Increase?
Have you heard that before?
No.
I mean, neither. Anyway, Increase Mather, his son, was not dissuaded, though, to go up against the court of public opinion. He had some big dick energy, for your average white dude energy, because he was then the president of Harvard. And
He's a Harvard boy.
Harvard. Oh. And with his BDE, he wrote, Ma, do you like that big dick energy? Me too, one day. Except when they're a douchebag. You gotta have, what's it called? Low-key BDE. Like,
no, there's a fine line between confidence and being cocky. No, but I like confidence. I don't like when someone's like in love with themselves. That to me is
for
revolting.
sure. That's incredibly revolting. And word from our sponsor, Molly, in the hallway.
Yeah, she is like on one today.
So, Increase Mather, BDE guy, broski, from Harvard, wrote a scathing letter to Governor Phipps denouncing, quote, spectral evidence, which I'm also guessing he published as an editorial. I don't know. Nothing was cited that he did that publicly, but I really think he must have, being the head of Harvard and having such like elite stature. You would think he wanted his own PR campaign. In his letter, he writes, quote, "It would be better that 10 suspected witches should escape than one innocent person be condemned," end quote. I did not do English any justice. I apologize. You could probably say that a hell of a lot better than I.
I'm not sure. I'm not good with impressions, accents, anything like that.
But essentially, he's saying it's better that you free suspected, quote unquote, witches or versus killing innocent women and men just because you claim they're a witch without any factual evidence. So remember, Increase Mather's big dick energy. Well, apparently he was boys with Governor Phipps because the Smithsonian article quotes Governor Phipps in response to Mather's letter, saying that it, quote, prohibited further arrest, released many accused witches, and dissolved the court of Oyer and Terminer, again, the Inquisition, ended the Inquisition on October 29th.
So all from that letter stopped everything? So he must have been someone of power.
Exactly.
Because I feel like I'm sure several other people that that hasn't even been recorded. I'm sure several family members came forward and like begged for them to stop. So this person must have had
money, baby.
Money or power. I don't know.
He was the president of Harvard, so there you go.
He was the president? I missed that part.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Increase Mather was, at the time he wrote the letter to Governor Phipps, he was the president of Harvard.
Oh, I see. But still, that's crazy. I mean, it's good they listened, I guess.
Yep, exactly. So, okay. So regarding this quote, Phipps replaced the Inquisition, basically, with a superior court of judicature, which disallowed spectral evidence and only condemned 3 out of 56 defendants, end quote. So,
do you know what that means? What did they change?
Yeah, it means like the people could no longer point fingers at someone for being a witch because they're low class or a person of color.
So they actually had to have like supporting physical evidence.
Supposedly, who knows? But that's at least a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Ending this legal inquisition. Phipps later pardoned anyone who was still in prison on witchcraft charges and ordered their release by May of 1693. So almost a year later, all those who were still in prison were released. But it's just wild that in 1 year all these things happened, and I have just a little bit of a list of a timeline coming up. So more watershed moments for the victims and their heirs were to follow the horrific execution of their family members in quote-unquote make good from public figures and judges who allowed this to happen. First, Judge Samuel Sewall publicly confessed his error and guilt. January 14th, 1697, the General Court ordered a day of fasting and soul searching in order to heal from the tragedy of Salem. 1702, the court declared the Salem Witch Trials as unlawful. 1711, the colony passed a bill restoring the rights and good names of those accused and granted £600, which in today's money, in USD, I converted it, thank you, Google, almost $26,000 today in restitution.
I'm sure that was a shit ton of money back then.
Oh, yeah, probably. And they're already poor as shit.
Yeah.
Most people probably anyway. So the family members and heirs of anyone put to death or accused received a lump sum of restitution of $26,000. And then bringing it to 20th century, 1953, Arthur Miller writes his play, The Crucible, as an expose and commentary again on McCarthyism. I have two more and I'm almost done. 1957, more than 250 years later, Massachusetts formally apologized for they call it events. I'm going to go ahead and call them murders.
Or genocide.
Genocide, yep, of 1692.
Well, I even saw it, instead of genocide, they started saying gender side, like for gender, like female.
Yep, gender side. Let's call it
I saw that and I was like, oh,
I love that.
Like right on.
Spot on. And finally, in August 1992, now marks the 300th anniversary of the trials. And on that day, Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel dedicated the Witch Trials Memorial in Salem. So, after all this needless trauma and suffering, nearly 3 centuries later, we may actually have a scientific explanation for the girl's hysteria.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So all that. And there's probably a likely scientific cause.
That's crazy that just stemmed from 2 little girls having a tantrum.
Yep. Murders. Mm-hmm. Gender side, as you so beautifully said, because of a tantrum. Karen's tantrums. Thanks, Karen's.
But they're little kids.
They can still be Karens. I know you babysat some Karen kids.
Oh, I know. There's definitely many Karens out there. Oh. I used to be a teacher.
Good Lord. I did, one of my many jobs in college was at the Four Seasons up in Scottsdale, and I was the kids club manager. Had to wear these like ranger khakis that were male trousers and this heinous like button up. I saw Nick Lachey too, by the way, when I was dressed like that. Anyway, those kids were fucking Karens in the kids club. Okay, they were like, they literally never heard the word no before, and I was like, I'm gonna be the first to tell you, hell to the no.
I cannot imagine you with those kids.
Hell to the fuck no. I don't play around. Shit.
When I worked at the movie theater, I always remember my friends from high school came to see me, and I had to wear, because like I think I can't remember, I had to wear like a white button-up shirt, long sleeves,
black
pants.
God, I love your kinder care.
No, but this is
Can we post?
Yeah, we can post that. And then I had to wear a bow tie and a little beret.
What?
And my friends said they were looking for me, and they're like, "Oh, is that a little boy? Oh no, it's Amy."
I can't. Wait, what job was this?
When I worked at the movie theater. I worked in concessions.
What?
Yeah, and I would charge my friends for a side of cheese, which was 25 cents, and I would just give them like all the popcorn and the drinks.
I should have saw you at the movies.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but also we can post my kinder care picture.
Thank you.
That'll be on our Instagram. It is like
snore.
the most.
Everyone get used to it. I snore hard.
It's basically like the worst picture of me ever, and I didn't realize it was picture day.
Oh my God!
At kinder care, and oh God.
And she was hungover, right?
Yeah, I was hungover.
Like,
I look
you throw up in the bath.
I look miserable. I am miserable. But we will post the picture because it's hilarious.
Okay. Back to the end of this story here, being scientific evidence for a fit for Abby, good old Abby and Liz here. Quote, one of the most concrete studies published in Science in 1976 by psychologist Linda Caporal blamed abnormal habits of the accused on the fungus ergot, which can be found in rye, wheat, and other cereal grasses. Toxicologists say that eating ergot contaminated foods can lead to muscle spasms, vomiting, delusions, and hallucinations.
Oh my gosh, that's nuts.
Like, so they took shrooms, basically. And also, the fungus thrives in warm, damp climates, not too unlike the swampy meadows in Salem Village.
Wow, that's crazy. There's like a whole explanation behind it.
Yep, and that rye was a staple grain during the spring and summer months. End quote.
So imagine those girls, that must have been traumatizing.
Yeah.
Can you imagine eating something and all of a sudden you're hallucinating and you have no idea what's going on?
Yeah, you're like Alice in Wonderland. You're big, you're small, you're probably seeing colors. Like,
I bet they actually did think they were possessed.
They probably did.
They probably thought they were possessed.
They probably did.
Wow.
If they're taking shrooms unknowingly,
Well, I'm sure they didn't know.
Yeah, oh no. Doesn't sound like it.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. What a cool connection.
Yeah. So, listeners, if you are still here after all of that darkness and you still want to visit Salem, I mean, I sure did when I was a kid. Like I said, I fucking loved it there. You can visit the Peabody Essex Museum, home to the original court documents, and Salem Witch Museum. As I said, definitely got a vibe when I was there. Like, you feel heavy and cold and like then anguish. There's like the Libra in me is looking for justice, right? And there's no justice for these women.
Mm-hmm.
But the moral of this story, the whole story really mirrors what Arthur Miller wrote in The Crucible, and super is closely tied to what's been happening since, the Orange Man somehow became president, where people of color and other religions are outcasted. And look at what's happening in Iran right now, or Afghanistan, all the refugees right now, right? It's just, when will humans ever learn? I don't think we will, unfortunately. It's really sad.
I feel like all you can do is try to be kind to others.
Yeah, man, be kind and be good as best as you can, and that's really sad, and I'm really glad I got to cover it, though, so thank you for letting me take it. So with that, peace be witches!
Thanks for listening. Please rate and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. Check us out on Instagram or bewitchedbanter.com. Suggestions for the show? Email us at bewitchedbanter@gmail.com. Credits, music, Phantom Fun by Jonathan Boyle from premiumbeat.com. Podcast edited and produced by Krista Hins and Amy Holt.